After, and then I also keep hearing from my Greek teachers how Cyprus is very famous for hospitality, and from my other friends who are from Europe, like European friends, that Cyprus is just one of the safest places in Europe. So I had no idea there's this hidden world in Cyprus, sort of. And then what really came to a sudden dramatic realization was when I was walking out for my lunch break from my office on the busiest street in Limassol, and that this guy put his arm around me and told me to come with him, that he will pay. And I had no idea who this is. I thought he was just a little insane. He was mentally insane. And I tried to push him away. And he just had I looked around to see if people were surprised or over to see this, and he wasn't trying to hide it at all. And he told me, he asked to, and I asked him for what do you want? And he said, for sex. Come with me to my place. I pay. And I was just very, very, very shocked. I can't even describe it. It blew my mind. I had no idea. It's things that you may hear about in a movie or something, and just never even enter into your world, your reality.
Yeah.
And when he saw that, I was so shocked. He said he assured me that he will pay because he's not a cheater, so it's okay. He will pay. So I started walking faster and faster away, and he tried to grab my shoulder, and I pushed him away. And at this point, we came to a street corner, and I shouted at him to go away. And then I look around the streets, and everyone was just walking along. It was a busy street. And then he went the other direction and motioned me to come along to his flat. And I just ran the other way. And that night I had gone to meet my American friend who's studying a one-year master's program in Cyprus. And I mentioned to her, I described her to these incidents, and she was completely shocked. She's a white American, and she said that although she's experienced rude gestures, she's never actually been propositioned.
Mm-hmm.
And she jokingly said, well, it must be because you're Asian. And then I thought, no, it can't be. But the thought kind of stuck in my mind. At the time I didn't realize it was actually because it just seemed so inconceivable. And that was in the first week of my time in Cyprus. And then I would walk to my office from my house every day, about a 15 to 20 minute walk, depending on how fast I walk. It's summer in Cyprus, so it's very hot, so usually I walk very slowly. And it's just this kind of proposition for sex would just happen every day, more than 2 times. Right. Because it wasn't just sort of sexual harassment and just a general assumption that I must be a prostitute because I'm Asian. It was also just all around racism. They assume that I must be a housemaid, or they ask me which madame I work for, which house in the vegetable market, in stores, from the bus drivers. So it seems to be like a rather, omnipresent thing. And it's just such a different perception of my race as what I'm used to, because in the States, Asians are actually perceived to be rather nerdy and academic. So I started trying to think, why is this happening to me? When I walk in Nicosia, I actually see quite a few Asians that I think they're actual prostitutes. So I started, I have no social science background really, because I'm a software developer, and I started blaming them. I didn't have too much deep knowledge of the subject, and I thought, well, they must have come here to work as prostitutes, and why do they have to do this? And I have to suffer the consequences of, suffering the racism that they have brought upon our race. So, and I felt really sad for, what's being perceived of my Chinese face, and what this whole situation is. So I really wanted to learn more about it as a coping mechanism, and also I didn't like just randomly hating these Chinese women I didn't know. And also, when I was waiting for the bus one day in Nicosia, and I ride the buses quite a lot because I don't have a car, and the buses are actually frequently late, so I'm waiting for the bus for about an hour in Nicosia, and this Chinese woman started talking to me, and she assumed that I'm also one of the Chinese migrant workers, like everyone else. And she started telling me about her life and about her family in China. So, it was actually my first contact with them, the Chinese migrant workers, and it really humanized them for me. I saw that they are a lot like, they have families too, they have their own background, they have a story why they ended up here. Of course, no one actually wanted to be a prostitute. And then I gave her my phone number, and next time I saw her on the bus stop again, and she went all the way back to her house and brought me all these home-cooked Chinese food, which I was really missing, during my time in Cyprus. And I was just so touched by her that this event really got rid of this convenient villain for me. Because for the Asian migrant workers was like a convenient villain for me. It allowed me to blame all my troubles on them. Because they came here, ruined my reputation, of course it's all their fault. But, after this incident really, I wanted to start a second project to study why this stories tend to be similar. They do show a very distinct pattern. I can tell one or two very exemplary stories.
Yeah.
So, one girl came because she wanted to support her family, specifically to put her brother through college. She had graduated with a bachelor degree in secondary education in the Philippines, and she was an English teacher. She specialized in English education. She was an English teacher in a secondary school in the Philippines for 4 years after receiving her teaching certificate. And she also was an English tutor in Hong Kong before she came to Cyprus through an employment agent who said that Cyprus is very beautiful. It's European, so it's got very good reputation. And it's got great weather and good pay. She was promised 300 euros per month for 7 hours per day of work, 5 days a week. And so she came mainly because she wanted to put her brother through college because tuition in the Philippines is rather expensive for her family. And her brother is studying to be in the civil service. So she came to Cyprus to work as a housemaid, a domestic worker. When she came to the airport in Larnaca, she had to pay for an escort from her employment agency. It's required by the agent, supposedly to guide her through the airport. And the agent greeted her with kisses on both cheeks, which she was told was a Cypriot custom, which it is, but the agent ended up wanting more than that. And he sexually harassed her on the way back from the airport. And that sort of set the tone for her entire experience in Cyprus. She's only been here for a year and a half. So she went to work for this family. It's an old couple, taking care of the old couple was her job. the old man of the family was very solicitous to her. He was always trying to touch her and ask her for sex, constantly. And then the old woman became very jealous of her. So she had this very oppressive atmosphere in the house where the old lady of the house would, her madame, as she was required to call them, would give her work for 16 hours a day, not allowing her to sit down, and she wasn't allowed to go outside, or her official documents were with them. And so she was really overworked, and sometimes she wouldn't be given any days off during the week at all. So, and on top of this, she was sexually harassed by the old man. So she applied for a complaint against her employers, and it's still pending in the labor department. And so that's one story.
Have you talked to any women who are actually active sex workers?
Yes.
Yes. And like, how come did they come here working supposedly for families and ended up going into becoming sex workers?
Well, I actually found 4 Chinese women living together in a flat in Limassol, on the way from my office to my house, and I talked to them. They actually invited me over for Chinese New Year's dinner, so I got to know them kind of well, and I just talked to them. All 4 of them came to Cyprus on the domestic worker visa, because it's very common for Cypriots to have domestic workers, so it's very easy to get with the agent. So they came over as domestic workers, and their employers kind of abused them. They didn't go into too much detail, except that they weren't given enough food, and the food they were given were inadequate. Some of them were spoiled and things, and they were overworked. So they just ran away from their employers and became illegal. And then they found that they could find part-time jobs as cleaners in various private homes or private stores. And they actually earned as part-time cleaners more than their monthly salary, because they were paid by the hour instead of paid per month.
Yes, of course.
And on the side, they would walk the streets, and there were plenty of old Cypriot men who were more than willing to pick them up.
Offers.
Yeah. And they told me about their family back home. They all have children in the universities, and none of their families know what they're doing here, actually.
And what would you say is the age group?
The age group of 50s. Yeah. The sex workers are 50s. None of them are younger than 50, I think. I guess the worst. We talked to almost any migrant workers, and they would literally say, Cyprus is hell. I can't wait to get out. This is the worst, shittiest hell. I mean, this is where you use the strongest words possible. It's really rather shocking the first time you hear it. We'll say Cypriots are racist. They think they are something special in the world, while they're judgmental, and the men have no morals. Well, they have the worst opinion of Cypriot men.
Is it better of the women? Do they have a better opinion of Cypriot women than Cypriot men?
Slightly better.
Slightly better.
I mean, I have this direct quote from the Chinese woman, one Chinese woman who works as, she ran away. She's now like a part-time cleaner, part-time sex worker on the streets. She says that she is sure that every Cypriot man would sleep with her if she agreed, would actually proposition her. And the one Filipina housemaid who does not work as a sex worker, she says that most Cypriot men would proposition her. So it's just this really low point of view of Cypriot men in terms of morality. Just no morals, no family values at all. In terms of Cypriot women, they think they're sort of insanely demanding. Partly, their theory is that they're jealous of that their men are like so morally depraved and chasing after foreign women, that they really treat their workers subhuman. They would insist that they call them madame. Some of her stories where the madame would insist that the worker not look her in the eye. They would not allow her to answer her cell phone or go outside talk to, and she wants to talk with any of her friends. She has to ask permission first. And when the worker girl goes through this kind of experience, she would have a very low opinion of her so-called madame, which is her only view of Cypriot women, since she's not. It's a world that, unless you're experiencing, is hard to believe. And that again comes back to how Cyprus is just so two-faced. It's really a world of contrast.